Hi everyone and welcome back to Canada Top to Bottom and the next in our series on Provincial Nominee Programs or PNPs. These are permanent residence programs offered by each Canadian province which aim to attract foreign workers who have the skills that are in demand in that particular province. Today we're focusing on Manitoba, which is right in the middle of Canada and is one of the country's Prairie Provinces.
Manitoba has a population of just over 1.3 million and covers a vast area of almost 650,000 square kilometres. It's bordered by Saskatchewan to the west, Ontario to the east, Nunavut to the north, and the US states of North Dakota and Minnesota to the south. The capital and only major city is Winnipeg, which has just over 760,000 inhabitants, with the next largest town being Brandon, which has a population of just over 50,000, then Steinbach at a little over 19,000.
The Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program, or MPNP, has some great benefits, one being that you can be eligible for some of the streams with a language score as low as CLB 4, which is considerably lower than the language requirements of CLB 7 for the Express Entry programs and lower than many other PNPs. You only need a minimum of 6 months work experience, and you can also gain points for the Manitoba PNP until you are 49 years old. The one catch is that you do need a tangible tie to Manitoba in order to apply, but this can be in the form of work or study experience in Manitoba, a family member there, or even a distant relative, and even a close friend.
The options under the Manitoba PNP can be broken down into 3 categories. The skilled workers stream, which is for workers either in Manitoba or abroad who have the skills which are in demand in Manitoba. Secondly, the international education stream for international students who have recently graduated in Manitoba. And thirdly, the business investor stream for business or farm investors and entrepreneurs. Each of these 3 categories have further streams within them, so we will go through each option in detail, explaining who each one is aimed at, what the requirements are, and how to apply.
So the first category is the skilled workers stream, which is based on the current needs of Manitoba employers. Foreign workers who have the skills and experience needed in the local labour market, and of course who have strong ties to Manitoba, are selected and nominated for Canadian permanent residence by the MPNP to settle and work in Manitoba. Within the skilled worker stream there are 2 pathways: skilled workers in Manitoba and skilled workers overseas.
For both these streams, there is a long list of occupations which are in demand in Manitoba, and while it is not mandatory to be experienced in one of these occupations, preference may be given to applicants in one of these fields. But don't be disheartened, there are a lot of in-demand occupations. From trades to arts and culture, education, health, social science and business. Click on the link in the description box below to see the full list of eligible occupations. Next to each occupation in the table, you will also see the minimum language level required for each occupation in the CLB column and which stream these occupations are eligible for. All the in-demand occupations require at least a CLB language level of 5. So for example, a massage therapist needs to have a language level of CLB 5 and would be eligible for the skilled workers in Manitoba, the skilled workers overseas, and the international education stream. A pharmacist would need to have a language level of CLB 7 and would also be eligible for all 3 streams.
Eligibility for both pathways under the skilled workers stream is a points-based system whereby you're allocated points for your age, language ability, education, work experience, and adaptability to life in Manitoba. To be eligible for the skilled workers in Manitoba stream, a Manitoba company must have offered you a long-term, full-time job after you've completed at least 6 months of continuous full-time employment with that company. This work experience and job offer fulfills the connection to the province requirement. There is no minimum education requirement, but the higher your level of education, the more points you will gain. You'll also gain points for your age, with the most points being awarded for being aged between 21 and 45. But, as we mentioned earlier, you can still gain points up to age 49. The minimum language requirement is dependent on your occupation, as we mentioned earlier, with some occupations requiring a higher language level than others. But if you exceed the minimum requirement, you will gain more points. As with all the PNP programs we mentioned, you can click the links below to find out how many points you would gain for your experience and skills.
Eligibility for the Skilled Workers Overseas stream is quite different, as candidates are not required to be currently working in the province, nor do they require a job offer. Firstly, you will need to prove your connection to Manitoba in the form of either a friend or a relative who is an established resident of the province and who is willing to support and endorse your plan for settling in Manitoba. Secondly, you must have either studied or worked in Manitoba in the past for at least 6 months. And finally, you must score at least 60 points out of a possible 100 based on 5 factors: age, language proficiency, work experience, education and adaptability.
For both the skilled workers in Manitoba and the skilled workers overseas streams, once you've determined whether you are eligible, application process begins with first creating a Government of Manitoba account and then submitting an expression of interest, or EOI. Once you've submitted this profile, you will be allocated a points total, after which your profile will be entered into a pool of other candidates and will be valid for 1 year. The MPNP regularly invites the highest scoring candidates in the pool to submit a full application to the MPNP.
With regards to the points-based system, you can gain points for all of the above factors, including 200 points for having a close relative in Manitoba, or 50 points for having a distant relative or even a close friend in Manitoba. However, be aware that you can also lose points for factors such as having a relative outside of Manitoba or having work or study experience in a different province.
Next up, we have the International Education stream, which, as the name suggests, is for international students who have graduated in Manitoba. If you graduated from another province in Canada, you won't be eligible under this stream. There are 3 pathways within the International Education stream: Career Employment Pathway, Graduate Internship Pathway, and International Student Entrepreneur Pilot. All 3 programs within this stream provide international students with permanent residence in Canada after they have completed their studies in Manitoba.
The Career Employment Pathway aims to provide a nomination pathway to permanent residence for students who have graduated in Manitoba and have found long-term employment in an in-demand occupation in the province. To be eligible for this stream, you must have graduated in Manitoba in the past 3 years, you must have a minimum language level of CLB 7, you must have a full-time job offer from a Manitoba employer and be working full-time at the time of your application being assessed, you must be living in Manitoba at the time of your application too, and you must show the intent to continue living there after your nomination. Final thing, you must either be employed full-time or be able to prove that you have enough funds to support yourself for 6 months.
The Graduate Internship Pathway is a little more specialist and provides faster nomination pathways for international masters and PhD graduates through internships. As with the Career Employment Pathway, this program requires a language level of CLB 7. You must be living in Manitoba at the time of application and must either be employed full-time or be able to prove you have enough funds to support yourself for 6 months. This program does not require a job offer. However, to be eligible, you must have completed a master's or PhD program in Manitoba within the past 3 years and have completed an internship with an eligible industry in Manitoba.
The final program in the International Education stream is the International Student Entrepreneur Pilot. Each year, this pilot program will provide up to 20 international students who have graduated in Manitoba the opportunity to pursue entrepreneurship rather than employment. Once the applicant meets the conditions of their business performance agreement, they are nominated for permanent residence in Canada. Applicants must be aged between 21 and 35 and have a minimum language level of CLB 7. A business plan is required as part of the application, as well as completion of a full-time post-secondary education program in Manitoba, which was at least 2 years long. Finally, applicants must have a valid open work permit or a postgraduate work permit at the time of application. They must have lived in Manitoba since graduation and must plan on continuing to live in Manitoba after their nomination.
An application to all 3 of these programs starts with submitting an expression of interest to the Government of Manitoba, after which candidates will be awarded a points total based on the 6 factors we discussed earlier. The Manitoba PNP then invites the highest scoring candidates to submit a full application for permanent residence in Canada. Click on the links below to find out more about the international education streams.
So the third and final programme in the Manitoba PNP is the Business Investor Stream, which allows the province to recruit and nominate qualified business investors and entrepreneurs from around the world who have the intention and the ability to start or purchase a business in Manitoba. There are two pathways within the Business Investor Stream, which are the Entrepreneur Pathway for applicants who are looking to open a business in Manitoba, and the Farm Investor Pathway for applicants who are looking to establish and operate a farm in rural Manitoba.
To be eligible for the Entrepreneur Pathway, applicants need a minimum of 3 years full-time work experience in the past 5 years, either as a business owner or a senior manager, a minimum language level of CLB 5, and education of at least a high school certificate. There is no minimum or maximum age, but ranking points will be awarded to applicants aged between 25 and 49. An investment of between $150,000 and $250,000 is required depending on the location of the business, along with a business plan and a minimum net worth of $500,000. Extra points are awarded for adaptability points such as spouse having a language level of CLB 5 or more, or having a close relative in Manitoba.
For the Farm Investor Pathway, it is expected that successful applicants will establish a farm business in rural Manitoba, producing products that are relevant to Manitoba's farm industry. To be eligible to apply, you must have a minimum of 3 years farm ownership and operation experience, a net worth of at least $500,000, and a minimum of $300,000 investment. There is no age limit and no official language requirement, but you are expected to be able to speak enough French or English to become economically established in Manitoba and potentially conduct an interview. If either of these programs within the Business Investor Stream interests you, click on the link below to find out more.
Okay, so that's all for the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program. We've covered all 3 streams within the MPNP and each of the programs within those streams. All of the relevant links to the programs we've talked about are in the description box below, so check them out to find out more. We hope we've given you some useful information, and do let us know if you're thinking of moving to Manitoba, or if you're just starting down the provincial nominee pathway. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. We'll see you next time.